Hello, my lovely peaches. Welcome and welcome back. This is kind of giving me like Sears photo shoot vibes, but like at night. It's too dark. Well, I just wanted to pop into the very beginning of this video to say that I'm going over here to turn on a light real quick. Sorry. Okay, so I just wanted to say in the very beginning of this video, hello, and let me get to a place. Okay, you can't see me, it's super dark, but it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I do some thoughts, and then I do some screen recording, and then I do a little bit more thoughts, and then a little more screen recording, and then a little more thoughts. And there's a lot more. I couldn't capture it all. I'm exhausted. I got through some thoughts about today. Ultimately, did it move the needle for me? As in, Karen's guilty, Karen's innocent. The McCabes, the McAlberts are guilty or innocent. Not the McAlberts, just the Alberts. I'm still going with my theory that maybe he slipped on the snow and hit his head on a rock. No, or, maybe she really did hit him. I mean, it is kind of weird for someone who intentionally killed someone to be like, where is he, and calling people, and then like, so I don't know. I could see maybe at this point, like, are you laying the groundwork to show he was hit by a car? Maybe that might go that way, but how do we make the leap to she did it on purpose? Because just because she argued with him and was jealous, that don't connect the dots to me for murder. But I'm not saying she didn't do it. I'm not saying she did do it. I'm saying I don't know. So I don't know. Hello, my lovely peaches. How are you? It is 12:40 a.m. Welcome and welcome back. I wanted to do a real quick recap about Karen Reed trial day 16, which happened already. I should be going to sleep. There's no trial tomorrow, so I could do a video then, which would make more sense. Maybe I will. That looks so cool, even though you can barely see me, but you can see my cool as fuck apartment. Lights goes all the way around. Look, I'm gonna go slow panoramics. Look at that. Still going. And then it stops. But then it connects again. So let's see. Today, Jen McCabe finished her 8 years of testimony, and Kerry Roberts testified. There was no cross of Kerry Roberts. Then we had somebody Sullivan. Then we had somebody Sullivan's little sister, and they discussed an argument in Aruba. So let's see. Those are the things I wanted to talk about for today. But as far as my squeaky floor, my cute bag, get that out of the way. Has anything moved the needle for me? I mean, I don't feel like, oh, she definitely killed him. I definitely don't feel like the Alberts and the McCabes murdered the man. Yes, there was some weird stuff with the texts and the Google search and stuff, but I honestly do believe, I believe that despite the fact that Jen McCabe is acting evasive, seems like she's lying, maybe she is lying about some things, but do I believe that the things that she's lying about equal up to a cover-up of a murder and a frame job? No, not yet. Do I believe that the prosecution, the Commonwealth, has proven anything yet? No, I mean, they've not proven. Is it likely that Karen was a super jealous and crazy? Supposedly, that's what John O'Keefe said. She's crazy. Oh, let's see. Kerry Roberts supposedly said, this was testified to by Jenn McCabe, that Kerry Roberts, Jen McCabe said she overheard Kerry Roberts on her phone interview with the cops, which occurred at Jen McCabe's house. Kerry Roberts was supposedly in the living room while Jen McCabe was sitting at the dinner table having dinner, and she said a few times, and Kerry was going on and on and on like she does, and that she overheard some, but then there was one part that she was shock and horrified. And then the statement came out, which was that Kerry Roberts said John McCabe was actually in love with Amy, who was Bella's mom, John's ex-girlfriend, and that and that Karen was just a babysitter with benefits. Meaning, if that were true, John was basically using Karen to help take care of his niece and nephew / children that he was raising. Whether or not that's true, who knows, you know? John's not here to testify on his own behalf. And I don't believe that Kerry is not... Why do I keep saying Kerry? Because Kerry and Karen sound very similar. I don't think Karen's going to testify. But, you know, who knows? Maybe she will. So, I do get the vibe that Jen McCabe is like, I absolutely fucking hate you. As far as Alan Jackson goes, and maybe even Karen Reed. And like I said in yesterday's video, while people can say, what a horrible friend, what kind of friend is that? What kind of support are they giving? They're calling her a crazy, batshit crazy. They're calling her hysterical. All this stuff. But maybe she was. Maybe she was batshit crazy. Maybe she actually hit the guy. Maybe she... Oh, that was something that Kerry Roberts said. That when Karen called her at 5-something in the morning, she said, John is dead. I think he was hit by a plow. All right, so is it true? Well, I don't know for sure, but that's what they testified to. So I'm just saying, if those things are true, then wouldn't they have a reason to not like her? Like if you had a friend who ran over their boyfriend and killed them and left them in the house long to die in the cold, wouldn't you be kind of not their friend anymore and be mean to them? Wouldn't you testify against them if you knew that they killed a friend of yours? then there was the whole, like, how's long to die in the cold was actually at 2:27 a.m., not at 6:27 a.m. And they were trying to prove that Jenn McCabe is Googling how's long to die in the cold from the warmth and comfort of her own bedroom at 2:27 a.m. As if she knew that he was out there, and she just was like, let me just leave that man out there to die, and I'm just going to Google it. The Commonwealth's explanation was she was Googling about soccer and stuff when she got home from the bar. She said she was wide awake. Soccer was on her mind. Her daughter was doing some soccer thing, and she had to give somebody an answer about the soccer thing. So, I mean, look at this right now. It is almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not Googling. I'm making a fucking video. So should I be asleep right now? Yes, I should. But does that mean, like, I'm a grown-ass woman. So if I want to be up late Googling soccer or making a fucking video, I can, you know? So the whole thing the Commonwealth was saying was that she was Googling about that. Then she went to bed. She just turned her phone, like, closed it, but didn't, like, shut the tab, so that later when she went to search out in the cold, freezing, and Karen is like, you know, look it up. How long does it take to die outside in the cold? And so she Googled it, and there was a typo, and then she Googled it again. So Alan Jackson, the defense attorney, was trying to make it a huge deal. Like, why would you Google it a second time if you'd already gotten the results? And she said, my hands were freezing. She was shaking my hands. I feel like there's a hair down here, and it's driving me crazy, and I'm trying to ignore it so I don't have to stick my hand down in my shirt. But I cannot ignore it. Oh. I can't find it. Okay. So he's trying to make a big old stink about why would you Google it a second time if you'd already gotten the result. And she's like, I never saw the result. We never had the chance to. We were outside. It was hysterical, chaotic. And I think the point was that by the time she searched again, Karen had found John's body, so she didn't need to keep searching. Then it was like shifting into, can we get blankets and towels? Like, let's help this man. And next thing is calling 911. So Google searching stopped. So I think it's potentially believable that if you had your browser open and then you open it again and you start a search, it might celebrate data mark that you searched that thing at that time. I don't know. I'm assuming they're going to have more experts and stuff. The Celebrite data that was supposed to be such a fucking bombshell, to me, it looked like a word table. So I'm like, okay, supposedly the Celebrite data is like this infallible reporting, but you plugged it into a word table that literally anybody can edit? I don't know. I'm scratching my head on that because maybe I'm the fool, but that shit looked like I could have made it and typed in any fucking number I wanted to. So how am I supposed to be convinced that a Word document is supposed to make me believe that this woman was conspiring to cover up a murder? I'm not buying it. Now, did she delete some calls? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. It's like, you know, is that reasonable doubt for me to believe that other people were involved in John O'Keefe's death? No. Like, to me, that's not what I'm really, at this point, nothing has been such a bow. Like, so Bob Motta, it's kind of funny to me because he was like, we have not decided, but then I feel like everything he says is so decided. And I could be wrong because I don't listen to everything he says, but meaning I'm watching on other streams. But today he was going on and on and on, which I felt was totally way off the mark about why would you search it twice? If you searched it and you got your result, why would you search it a second time? How's long to die in the cold? Like that was a big deal. I'm like, she said she's out in the cold. It's dark. It's snowing. It's freezing. It's chaotic. Karen is screaming and shaking her hands, and she did it. She thought it was a typo. She's trying to get. I'm like, I Google search things more than once when I'm sitting in the comfort of my own fucking home. I do more than one Google search on the same topic almost all the time. Like, unless I find exactly what I'm looking for right away. And sometimes I want to see what different kind of result, like making a big deal out of doing a Google search a second time, to me was like, that was not it. All right, what other points can I make real quick? So Kerry Roberts also corresponded, what's the word? Corroborated that when they were in the car, Karen was like in the back, but pushing herself in between them. She correlated, I just said the word. She corroborated. It's late. My brain is like buffering. Go to bed, girl. She corroborated that Karen was saying all kinds of crazy statements. I hit him. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Talking jealous about all kinds of stuff. And then the defense did not ask her a single question, and most likely they were just like, she has literally nothing to add. She's nothing to add, and we have nothing to impeach her on, and she is not going to help us. Nothing burger for her, so bye-bye. And so then let's see if I can really quickly talk about it. So they talk about this Aruba trip that happened December 30th and 31st of 2021, which was the New Year's Eve of 2022. He died on January 28th or 29th of 2022. So this Aruba trip was less than a month, like just under a month before. Okay, so the first person who gets on the stand, somebody Sullivan, she explains that they went about it in a whole other roundabout way, but the way I'll tell it is different. Okay, she has a child. That child's father was childhood best friends with John. They were doing t-ball together, meaning 4 or 5 years old. They grew up together. That guy's name was Pat. Pat and John were best friends. They grew up together. At one point in like 2013, they go to a bar. John and Pat go to a bar, and they meet this Miss Sullivan. Miss Sullivan starts dating Pat. Because of that, her and John get to know each other. Miss Sullivan gets pregnant. Pat kills himself. Because of that, well, that night that he killed himself, she said she was at her nephew's party. She's trying to call Pat. He's not answering. He sounded weird. She calls John, who was a cop. And Pat was a cop. Hey, I can't find Pat. Can you find him? Can you help find him? He ends up getting some friends who find Pat in Pat's own basement, dead. Then from there, she said, after that, John never left my side. Not romantically, but he became the godfather of her child, and they became very close. And he took that godfather role seriously, and he really was a part of that kid's life. So they were close, and that was a really good friend of this Miss Sullivan. Miss Sullivan has a sister who's 10 years younger than her, and so because John is the godfather of this young Miss Sullivan's nephew, she knew John. The sister, considered John like a brother, a big brother. Okay, that's all the whole setup. So then this New Year's about to be 2022, this friend, Miss Sullivan, so she says they go to Aruba, so she's got a new boyfriend at this point. Probably not new anymore because it's been many years. Okay, So John was friends with that guy. And so she has this big old friend group. She's got, probably not even all of them are friends. She's got this timeshare that they go down to. Anyway, this big group of 60 people with 40 rooms or some shit, big block rooms. They decide they're going to go down for New Year's, okay? John and Karen are part of the group. So the whole big shebang, big reveal, big gotcha moment was that the girl, the younger girl, sister, who she looked like she was in her early 20s, drop dead gorgeous, okay? Absolutely gorgeous. She said she's, goes upstairs to put the mom to bed, who's also there at the Aruba, comes back down in the lobby, sees John. He stumbles out of the elevator, walks by her. She thinks he's coming to hang out with them. She said that his eyes were glazed over. He didn't even make eye contact with her. He gave her a hug. She's like, she gives him a hug. She steps back. He's looking over her head, like looking for someone. She's like, hey, where you going? Thinking he was going to come meet them at the bar cabana, the pool bar cabana, whatever thing. And he's like, I'm going that way. And she's like, okay, go that way. And then she's like, oh, it's over there, wherever. And she's walking away. And then she turns a corner and she hears a woman's voice scream out, who the fuck was that? And then she says it stopped her in her tracks. She turns around. She goes back around the corner to go see what's going on or whatever. And then she sees John. She sees John approaching a woman saying, calm down, that's just Miss Sullivan's little sister. Then she sees the lady. She says, hi, nice to meet you. And Karen says, go fuck yourself. And she says, well, fuck you too. And then she's like, Karen is like doing something and yelling at her or whatever. So she says she immediately goes over to the pool thing, and him and Karen go the other way, and she goes up to her sister and is like, John's girlfriend? And the sister's like, Karen? And she's like, yeah, what do you think of her? And the sister's like, she's okay, I guess. And young little Miss Sullivan says, well, she sucks. That was it. That was the big old fight. Oh, no, wait. There was one little part where, right. I'm sorry. Miss Sullivan, the older one, she testified first, but I feel like her testimony should have come after, but I guess it was foundation or whatever. Anyway, she said, like the day after, somehow, I don't remember exactly, but Karen is like, your sister was making out with my boyfriend. She says to her sister, were you making out with him? She's like, absolutely not. The sister had a boyfriend, and the way she described it was, he's like my brother. That would just not ever happen. Like, he's like family. Like, And then the Miss Sullivan, the sister, the older one, said that like the next day, Karen approaches her and is like, I'm so sorry. Can I pay for some of your sister's room? And she was like, that's not necessary. And she was like, I know, I want to anyway, and asked for the sister's room number. And she says she doesn't remember if she gave it to her or anything about that. But also that like the night before or the night before that, they were like 40 people at dinner with like 20 tables at this huge thing. She said there was like several table groups, obviously, and that Karen went off before the check came and paid the whole entire bill for everybody, and that they were really like, whoa. But I got the sense that it was like kind of like So she said that it was sort of like awkward, and people were like, no, 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 let me give you cash, let me Venmo you. You didn't have to do that. And she was like, oh, and that Karen said, I'm honored to be here. I wanted to pay. So I feel like it's kind of like, so when you add to the problems and the arguments that they were having, that was testified to, that John and Karen had, was that he didn't like that she would buy the kids expensive stuff. She spoiled them with money. And, you know, in the very beginning, I do think I mentioned, it's like, you know, on one hand, you could argue, oh, she's so generous, whoopee-doo. Oh, she's rich and she's just spending money on them. How cruel of her. But I can also see, like, if you're trying to raise your children a certain way and you want to have certain ideals or morals or way of life, and here's somebody who's just throwing money in your face, maybe that's not the message you want to give. Maybe he didn't want to raise his kids with this idea of, like, I can get anything I want to. Maybe it seems like maybe Karen thought that her money would, like, excuse her bad behavior. Maybe she thought that she could, like, throw her money around in people's faces in a way that, instead of them feeling appreciative and like, wow, that was so sweet and generous of her, it rubbed them the wrong way and made them feel creeped out. Maybe. Speculation. I'm just saying, like, just because somebody is wealthy doesn't make them a nice, good person, okay? And just a quick sidebar, a good friend of mine who is not, what's the word? Like, she's not low income. She's not rich, and they, you know, they have their own financial type of struggles, but, you know, she's comfortable. And then, so at one point during the pandemic thing, in 2020, my friend went with her 2 kids and her husband to go live closer to his sister and her 2 kids and husband, thinking, we're family, cousins are cousins, it'll be great, we'll be closer to family, it'll help out, and all that stuff. But she said that the sister is really rich and has totally different way of living, and, like, everything is brand new all the time. Kids have new stuff like every other day. And she said that that is not at all how she wanted to raise her children. It started to become a real problem. Her kids were always like, how come they always have brand new stuff? Why can't we have brand new stuff too? Why do we have to have our old crappy shit? Not that they would say it exactly, but you know what I'm saying? So just because a person is wealthy and just because somebody spends money on you or the kids does not always make it good. So does it make it bad? I don't know. I'm just saying, let's just look at it from more than one perspective to say, just because somebody has money and they're throwing it in your face does not make them a good role model or necessarily even kind, and not even necessarily generous, because if they're trying to use it to influence people, to gain affection, or for people to like you, or because you screamed, who the fuck are you, go fuck yourself, to somebody. And they said that was the literal first interaction that she ever had with this woman. Does that mean that Karen ran him, bumped, knocked into, hit him with her car? I hit him. Of course not. Of course not. Absolutely not. And the judge was clear about it by repeating the instructions several times, that this testimony does not mean that she did the thing. And I will say, but I will say, yeah, I mean, I was shocked when she said that. She was like, go fuck yourself. I was like, whoa. But then she was like right back and, well, fuck you too. Like, whoa, okay, so That's super uncool. And then she's, she's like, if it's true, she was, irrationally jealous. And the other part of the testimony from Jen was that after the waterfall bar and grill, when they were on the speakerphone and she was giving her directions about how to get to her sister's house, she said, you go past Bella Street, which is the friend of John's daughter and Jenn McCabe's daughter, and the daughter of his ex-girlfriend Amy, the one he was supposedly really in love with, and Karen was just a babysitter with benefits to, I guess, fill the void. But, is that true? I don't know. And does that mean that she killed the man? I don't know. But the prosecution's case is coming like a slow drip torture. And at the end of it, is it going to equate to, oh my God. Oh my God. What's that sound? Oh my God. Oh my God. It's late, shut up. So, yeah, it's kind of like lukewarm. Like diner coffee. Like, it's giving hung jury. It's giving not guilty. Not because I don't think she's guilty necessarily, but it's like, okay. But maybe they're going to continue with the slow trickle, and at the end of it, I'll be like, oh, she's guilty. Right now, I'm just like, This is a real slow. Ooh. All right, see you. Bye.
After you went upstairs, you indicated that you got on the phone.
Correct.
On your cell phone, correct? After you got on your cell phone, you indicated that you started searching for stuff.
Correct.
So if there's GPS that you've seen the forensic extraction or part of it, correct?
Which one are you referring to?
The forensic extraction of your phone.
I saw what you showed me yesterday from Celebrate.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Right, part of it.
I saw, the phone calls, yes.
Okay. You're aware that that extraction shows that you got home after 2 a.m. or so that would be generally correct.
Correct.
The Celebrate extraction shows from your Apple Health data that you actually went up a set of stairs. That would be accurate, correct?
Accurate.
The Celebrate data shows that you actually logged into your phone, did a login, either Face ID or a passcode, opened up the phone. That would be accurate.
Correct.
The Celebrate data shows that you were engaging with an app called Safari to engage some Google searches, correct?
Yes.
That would be generally accurate as well, correct?
Yes.
So why did you search it then?
Well, first I was home, I was wide awake, and I had been texting about a basketball chat, and basketball was clearly on my mind. My daughter had been invited to join a team. I didn't know much about the team.
Right? If you wanted to know the answer to that, what would you Google search? What phrase would you use?
I'm not sure. All I recall is what the defendant asked me to Google in the morning.
If you wanted to know, I'm asking a different question. Mm-hmm. If you personally wanted to know, how long does it take for a person to die of exposure due to extreme temperatures, what would you put in? What phrase would you use?
Objection. Sustained.
Well, we don't have to guess at the phrase that you would use if you wanted to know something about dying of hypothermia, do we? Did you actually Google search it?
Objection. Sustained. Ask that differently, please.
Did you, in fact, use a phrase to Google search how long it takes for someone to die of extreme temperatures?
I did in the morning at the request of your client.
Okay. And what phrase did you use?
I'm not sure.
Really?
Correct. I was
2.5 years of this. You don't know the phrase that you used?
Objection, Your Honor. There's so many lies and misconceptions on social media.
Question.
Oh, I apologize. Okay.
Are you telling me you don't remember what Google search you put in?
Karen was screaming. My hands were shaking, and she was saying, "Google hypothermia. How long does it take to die in the cold?"
And what phrase did you put in your phone? I'm just asking you to say it.
Why don't you show me it?
You literally don't remember?
Again, she was screaming, "Google hypothermia. How long does it take to die in the cold?" And I picked up my phone and I started Googling.
And you literally, to this day, right now, under oath, you're saying you don't remember that phrase that you used.
Objection. I'll allow it.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that at her...
Do you remember it or do you not, Ms. McCabe? That's a simple question.
That morning, I don't remember specifically what I Googled, but I do know what you've put out to the social media.
How about this? Costs long to die in cold. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it's been
Why
everywhere.
does that sound so familiar?
Because you put it out in social media.
Well, I haven't put anything out in social media because I don't personally have social media.
I'm sorry, Turtle Boy did.
So if the world happens to know it, that's not on me, is it?
I guess not.
I guess not. Costs long to die in cold is what you put into the Google search, right?
If you say so.
Is there a reason that you don't want to admit to that?
Absolutely not.
It's a simple question, right?
No reason.
So say it. What Google search did you use?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were seeking, at some point, to Google how long to die in the cold, correct?
Correct.
And you made a mistake and mistakenly typed costs long to die in cold, correct?
You could show me it. I'd appreciate it.
You later Google searched. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
While she looks at that, Mr. Jackson, can we bring our clerk back upstairs?
Of course, yes. I think we're actually.
Thank you very much. Can you text Jimmy and tell him?
Take a look at that report and tell me if that refreshes your recollection.
Yes, it does.
Does that appear to be an accurate page from a Celebrite extraction from your phone?
It does.
Okay. May I have that? I'm sorry, may I approach?
Yes.
May I have that back this time? Did you see this, the actual search phrase? Does
Yes.
that now refresh your recollection?
Yes.
But I thought that was marked as next in order. Consider, please.
Is there an objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Jim?
Yes. Yeah. May I?
Yes. Is that Madam Court Reporter? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to publish this, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do you want your videos to look like this? Well, in just 14 days, we've taught all these people how to do it. Our program
Does this appear to be the document that was just marked as Exhibit 99?
Yes.
It's a little bit small. You see this column?
Yes.
Third column from the actually the fourth column from the left. One some dates, some data, and then a Google search, correct?
Correct.
What does that Google search say?
How's long to die in cold?
Now, you indicate that you did that, you made that search at 6:23 a.m., correct?
Correct.
And then you indicated that you did it again thereafter at 6:24, correct?
Correct.
At 6:24, you misspelled the phrase and you spelled it as follows: how long T-I, die in C-I-K-D, correct?
Correct.
Now you claim that those two searches were at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m. respectively, correct?
Objection.
Phrase it differently.
Sure. You've indicated under direct examination that these two searches were at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m., right?
I don't know if I gave exact times, but I said it was in the morning and Karen had asked me to do it.
And you claimed that you searched it because Karen was screaming at you and yelling at you, Google hypothermia, and you Googled how long does it take for a person to die. I'm sorry, she said something like how long does it take for a person to die of hypothermia, and you Google searched it at 6:23 and 6:24. Is that right?
Again, I'm not sure about the exact times. I just did it after Karen asked me to do it.
Would you quarrel with the idea that those were about 30 seconds apart?
Okay.
And you're aware, Ms. McCabe, that both misspellings of that phrase result in the exact same search results, don't they?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Well, you Googled them.
Whoops. All right. So that was a snippet of the back and forth where he was trying to pin her down to having searched how's long to die in cold at 2 something in the morning when she was home, warm and dry and safe and not at all thinking about John O'Keefe. And I don't believe it, to be honest. I don't believe it. I know that there are countless people online who do believe it. I saw a lot of people saying, oh my God, it's over. It's like over now. Like that is like a mic drop. Like the case is over. And I'm like, okay, it's like a table. Like I could make that table. Is it true? I mean, I did see Natalie Lawyer chick going on and on and on one day about how the Celebrite data is always like so perfect. But then I've seen Peter Trago say like, well, there can be little errors sometimes. And sometimes, what he specifically said, sometimes the time is what's wrong. Sometimes it might be because you had a browser open and when you opened up the browser again, it time stamped the thing because that's the last moment that it was there. So, like I already said, that just does not move the needle for me. Like, oh, y'all motherfuckers is murderers. Like, it's just not the smoking gun that some people think it is. I don't know. So that was from Law and Crime, and it was around the 1 hour mark. If you want to go back and watch it yourself and watch it in regular motion instead of 1.75, I even did a 2.0 two-time, oh, I'm trying to get it, I'm trying to find the freaking, I'm trying to get the transcript up.
Oh, she called me. She just called and I didn't. She called twice.
And the phone call that you answered, what time was that?
5 on the dot.
And if you know, from looking at your phone, the phone call that you didn't wake up or didn't answer, you know how long before that phone call was?
I think it was a minute or two before.
So 5 o'clock on the dot, you get a phone call, you answer it, and it's Ms. Reed, is that right?
Correct.
And that phone number you had her sort of programmed into your phone as contact, is that correct?
Yes.
And on prior occasions, had you called that number, gotten a call from that number on prior occasions?
Yes.
And when you got that call or made that call, who was the other person on the end that you received?
Say that again?
Maybe a pretty simple question as far as it goes, but just with reference to any prior phone calls that you either got or received with that number that you programmed into Karen Reed. When you spoke to someone by calling or receiving a call from that contact, who was on the other end of the call?
Karen Reed.
Okay. So you answered the phone sometime right around 5 a.m. and you described to the jury sort of what the content of that conversation was.
I answered the phone and she said, John's dead. Kerry. And then she hung up.
And as far as her in the conversation, did you say anything or get a chance to say anything before she hung up?
No.
And when she's speaking to you and saying those words to you over the phone, how loudly is she saying those words?
Very loud. She woke my husband, who was sleeping.
So the time that the phone rings and you pick it up, your husband's sleeping, correct?
Yes.
And then afterwards he's what?
Correct.
Now, what happened then?
Then I got out of bed and Kurt said, what was that? I said, I don't know. Something's happening. And I think I started getting dressed at that point because I don't know if I started getting dressed at that point or after she called back again. I tried to call her, I think a couple times back to be like, what is going on? Finally, she called me back again and she said, I'm afraid John might be dead. He might have gotten hit by a plow. He did not come home last night. I was not supposed to stay in Canton last night and he would never leave Kaylee alone. I think something happened.
And do you recall earlier in the day of the 28th having any communication with either Mr. O'Keefe or Ms. Reed?
I did with John. He texted me.
Do you recall generally what that was about?
My son got into a scuffle with some boy at school. Correct.
And about how long was it after that initial phone call that you had when she hung up? How much time it elapsed between that call and the next one?
I don't know, maybe 5 minutes.
And so when she calls back, she makes those statements to you that you just testified about, and upon her making those statements, what, if anything, would you respond?
Then she said she checked Kaylee's phone to see if John had called. And I said, okay, where are you now? And she said, I'm driving. Can I come to your house? Will you drive my car? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything. And I said, you need to go home and be with Kaylee if she's there by herself. I'll go look for him or something of that nature. Because I said, you're going to get a DUI. If you were drinking all night last night and you don't remember anything, you shouldn't be driving. All right, so next question, please.
When you were talking to her on the phone, what, if any, observations did you make of sort of how she was speaking or
She was very frantic and her voice was elevated. She was very frantic.
and the loudness that you were describing during the course of that first phone call, what, if any, observations did you make with respect to that in regard to the second?
Same. Throughout the rest of the day, it was the same.
So you indicate to her that she needs to go home, is that right?
Correct.
And what, if anything, did she say in response to that?
She said, I'm going to come to your house. Will you drive my car? And I said, okay.
And after that, what did you do from there?
I started getting dressed. I think that's when I was starting getting dressed. And my husband said, where are you going? I said, I don't know. Something happened. John didn't come home. Karen's worried. So I'm going to go help her. And he said, you're not going anywhere. It's a blizzard. And I said, yeah, yes, I am. And I went downstairs. I started the car, cleared it off. And I sat there waiting. And she didn't come. So I called.
During the time that you're waiting in the car, do you know about how long period it was that you were waiting in the car?
I would say at least 10 minutes of sitting in the car.
And to that point, as far as when you went outside to the car, what, if anything, did you observe about the weather, and what, if anything, did you do with your car as you were turning it on?
I cleaned the car off. I turned the car on. I got in it, and I thought to myself, well, she thinks he might have got hit by a plow or something. I'll see if there's any accidents. So I called the Canton non-emergency line, and I said, have there been any plow accidents? My friend's boyfriend didn't come home. And they said no, there were no accidents. So then I called Good Samaritan Hospital in Milton to see if anybody had been brought in a car accident. They said no. And then finally Karen called back.
Before we get to that, just in reference to, at any point in time, did you call Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
And when you called Mr. O'Keefe, were you able to speak to Mr. O'Keefe?
No.
Do you know how many times you called Mr. O'Keefe?
My husband called him, and I think I called him.
And when was that in relation to you going up to your car and clearing it?
That was when I was in the house. Karen actually said, can you try and call him?
And you did, and you didn't get an answer.
Correct.
And you know whether or not your husband got an answer?
He did not.
So you go out to the car, you're waiting, and you make those phone call initially to Canton Police, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know who you spoke to at Canton Police?
I believe it was Officer Good.
Is that someone that you knew in any way prior to this date of January 29th?
We have mutual friends, but no, I'd never met him.
Now, you call the hospitals, and then at some point after you finish speaking to the hospitals, the defendant then calls you back, correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, can you describe to the jury sort of what was the content of that conversation that third time?
She said, I said, where are you? I'm in the car. And she said, I'm at Jen's house. And I said, Jen who? She said, Jenn McCabe. She's going to drive my car. And I said, okay, stay there. I'll come to there. We'll follow and we'll drop your car off. We'll just take my car and go look for him. And I drove to Jen's, and I pulled in the driveway behind them. I was still on speakerphone. Jen is driving. Karen's in the passenger seat, and we drove. I said, do you remember, did you look through the house? Could he be passed out somewhere in the house? She said, I don't know. I didn't look. So I said, let's do that. Let's get in the cars. We're not taking 2 cars. It's a blizzard. We're going to go back to Meadows, and we're going to go look in the house first. He could be passed out behind the couch or on the floor. Who knows? So we went to the house.
Yeah, I'm sorry, before you get into that, just as far as directionality and where you're going at this initial stage, you were sort of directing what's going to happen and where you're going to go, correct?
Correct.
Now, you had mentioned that the defendant said she was at Jen's house. You asked Jen who, and she said Jennifer McCabe, correct?
Objection. I'll allow it.
With regard to Ms. McCabe, did you know her, or how did you know her prior to this morning of January 29th?
I had met her once when John took her and I to Reebok because he's got a 50% discount, so we would go periodically and get the kids.
First coming up to Ms. McCabe?
I pulled a time or two for John and brought her home if I was heading that way, because Jen's house is on the way to John's.
And so you go to Ms. McCabe's house, and can you describe for the jury sort of what you observe or what you see when you're first coming up to Ms. McCabe?
I pulled in the driveway behind Karen's car, and Karen and Jen are in the car talking. I'm still on Bluetooth, so I can hear them. And Karen said that she remembered leaving him at Waterfall. And Jen said, no, I saw you pull up to my sister's house. And then at some point in the conversation, she said, what about my taillight? What about my taillight? And I looked, and there was a piece missing, but it was caked on with snow. You could tell there was a little black hole, but there was snow like caked on it, and it was a blizzard at this point.
Now, just as far as over the course of this early morning when you're making that drive from your house to Ms. McCabe's house, correct?
Yes.
So during that time, can you describe sort of what the lighting conditions were, what the roadway conditions were, what you observed as you were driving over there?
It was not light out yet, and it was really bad driving.
And bad driving in reference to snow, was that correct?
Yes.
So you get to Ms. McCabe's house, and during the drive from your house to Ms. McCabe's house, you're speaking to both Ms. McCabe and Ms. Reed?
Yes.
And with reference, I think you've said a couple times as far as a Bluetooth. So as far as what you're hearing on the other side of the conversation, is it just one person, or are you able to hear sort of everything that's going on in the car?
I could hear everything. It was like a regular phone call in the car.
From where you were, your impression was it was hooked up to the speaker of the car.
Correct.
And when you get to Ms. McCabe's house, or what you were just testifying about as far as the taillight, when is it that you're making those observations?
In Jen's driveway.
And so about how far away from the defendant's car were you the first time that you see or your attention's drawn to this taillight?
I was parked right behind them in the driveway.
And can you describe which part of the vehicle we're looking at as far as which taillight that you're observing this damage?
The right passenger.
And so from there, as far as Ms. McCabe's driveway, you make these observations. Where is it that you go from there?
Say it again?
So after you're making those observations and you're overhearing that conversation, or you're having that conversation with Bluetooth, where did the three of you go?
We went to Meadows, to John's house.
And how was it that each of you sort of got from Ms. McCabe's house to John's house on Meadows?
Jen drove Karen's car, and I followed behind in my car.
And when you arrived there, where did you go? Where did you park?
I think I pulled in right behind. She pulled her car sort of in front of the garage bays, and I pulled in the driveway behind her.
And when you say she, do you know who was driving?
Jen McCabe, sorry.
Driving in Ms. Reed's in the front passenger seat.
Correct.
And you're driving your car behind.
Correct.
What kind of car did you have?
A Ford Explorer.
Do you recall what color it was?
Dark gray.
And as far as Miss Reed, do you recall what kind of vehicle she had at that point?
A Lexus SUV.
Recall what color that was?
Black.
Now, with respect to Mr. O'Keefe, do you recall what kind of vehicle John O'Keefe had?
He has a Traverse.
And do you recall what color that was? Does that seem like a fair and accurate? Back that morning, what if anything?
Read. And that's
Trail of sort of where the cars were and what things looked like when you first arrived at Mr. O'Keefe's house. Gentlemen, if I could have from the driveway video number 154. So, Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
yes, that's Karen's car and my car. And John's is in the background.
Now, in front of you on the desk, there should be a laser pointer. It's not. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So pressing on that button and pointing sort of at the screen, if I could ask you just direct the jury's attention to where you see Ms. Reed's vehicle, where you see your vehicle, and where you see Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle with it all.
That is John's car. That is Karen's car. That is my car.
Is this a fair and accurate portrayal of sort of where the cars were and what things looked like when you first arrived at Mr. O'Keefe's house, coming from Ms. McCabe's house?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you could. Now, with reference to any individuals that you observed in this video, again, using the laser pointer, you could draw the jury's attention to who you observed and where they were.
That is Jenn McCabe, and that is Karen Reed, and that's me.
And at some point, you enter in through the garage, is that right?
Correct.
Now, as far as the garage doors were concerned, when you came back that morning, what, if anything, did you notice about the garage?
The right garage door wouldn't close.
So it was open when you arrived?
I don't recall if it was open when we arrived, but when we were leaving, it wouldn't close.
And do you recall, do you have any idea of sort of how that mechanically worked, like how you would open, how you would close the garage door?
There's a code on the side.
And at any point in time, whenever you noticed that the garage door was open, were you or any of the people that you were able to close that door?
No.
And so was that the door that you entered into in order to get into the garage, to get into the mud, and take off your shoes and go out?
Correct.
And when you came into the house that morning, and you entered into the mud, what, if anything, did you do with your shoes, and what, if anything, did you observe Ms. McCabe and the defendant do with their shoes?
Jen and I both had taken our shoes off in the sort of steps in the garage before we entered into the mudroom. We took our shoes off, and Karen just walked in.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just play the video.
Yes.
No, I really turned off the light. So I just had a note here that I wanted to just say about that particular point, because that was another point that Bob Mata was saying, that Jenn McCabe had testified that at some point, let me see if I'll turn this on a little bit. So Jen had testified that at some point during this night, Karen said, "Come and look at my taillight," and Jen and Kerry looked at the back of, oh, my coffee is here, looked at the back of Karen's Lexus SUV and saw that there was a crack, or that the taillight was cracked, or however it was worded, but that it was a lot of snow in it, so it wasn't really clear like what exactly was all broken, but something was messed up. So Bob Mata was very adamant in pointing out that that clip right there where Jen pulls up to John's house in Karen's SUV, and she gets out of the driver's side. Karen gets out of the passenger side. Karen runs around the back of her SUV, which is where they pause it, and they're like, who's that, who's that, who's that? And Bob points out they never stop and look at the taillight, and he is convinced that is proof that Jen lied. But what Kerry testified to was that Karen called her, said, John is dead. He got hit by a plow. Can you drive my car? But for whatever weird reason, unknown, unclear, instead of her going to Kerry's house, she then called Jen McCabe and ended up going to Jen's house. And all of this was within 5 minutes. And so she shows up to Jen's house, and I think it's possible that if Jen is telling the truth about, at this point when Kerry pulls up in her car at Jen's house, not at John's house, where there's a ring light camera that we saw, but before that, maybe that point is where, before they get into, before they leave, they look at it there. I don't know. So that's just, again, speculation about the fact that it's not on the ring camera at John's house does not necessarily definitively mean that it never happened. I'd really have to go back and scour Jen's testimony to see, did she say it happened in front of John's house? Maybe it happened in front of her house, or maybe it happened at the scene. But the fact that it's not on the video, to me, is not definitive proof that that never happened. So I feel like I'm going to leave this here. There's probably more testimony that I could record and more things I could talk about. And maybe I'll do that tomorrow, which is actually today, because it's Thursday, May 23 at 1:59 a.m., 2024. And I am exhausted. You could probably see, I feel like my eyes are not even open. Okay, see you. Bye. See you in the next one.